checking in on my friends who are struggling this week. My heart goes out to you. Hope you're doing okay.
This is I believe, who is this? A city council woman? Laura Smith is her name. She just sieg heiled to own the libs. This is a shout out to Elon Musk's sieg heil, of course.
Thank you for making it happen. Thank you. Thank you.
Jesus Christ, dude, it's so crazy. Anyway, let me just figure out what she is exactly. I forget now. Toamenson Township Board of Supervisors is what she is. And it doesn't really, there's a campaign out right now to basically report her to the ethics board or whatever, but she retires next year anyway, and that's probably why she felt so comfortable doing a Nazi salute to a gigantic audience. Now, Elon Musk, after his Nazi salute, he said, basically, how can a Zionist be a Nazi? And I'm here to explain that to you. We'll get into it in a second, though. Look at Laura Smith's response. This is on Facebook. I posted a video yesterday poking at the insanity going on. Elon Musk has been a hot topic. The Anti-Defamation League stated, while it was an awkward gesture, it was not a Nazi salute. Yeah, that's a Zionist organization. I want to talk about what that is and why they would defend a Nazi like that. We all saw what happened. We watched him sieg heil, okay?
Happened. Thank you.
That is a sieg heil. A textbook example of it. I'm not going to let them twist this into anything other than what it is. When I say them, I mean Elon Musk, Laura Smith, and others. Is a Nazi salute. As 1984 says, the most important thing is that you don't believe your lying eyes. Something to that effect. Anyway, we'll get to the ADL in a second. Just keep listening to her response. These folks will not accept that. So anyone who does not believe as they do is wrong. And now they think I should be canceled. They're calling for me to apologize and resign. Apologize for what? My heart goes out to you? Tim Walz did exactly that. Watch the video. It's out there. But no one had an issue there. All the Democratic leaders have similar photos out there, but no one has an issue. Wake up. These people do not want you to think for yourselves. They want you to believe what they tell you, and if you step out of line, they'll come for you. Somebody responds, crazy politics these days, kind of like my personal life trying to talk to my little sister again. I just can't figure out who to trust. So I just rely on my gut, and in my gut, I'm a middle-of-the-pack political viewpoint. Okay, well, you're just wrong if you stand for this. All right, she says, this is a my heart goes out to you gesture by Elon Musk. Well, no, it wasn't. And you know why I say that? Because we have a video of Elon Musk giving us a my heart goes out to you gesture. This is Elon Musk saying my heart goes out to you to a crowd, juxtaposed with his sieg heil. They don't look the same. They do not look the same. Those are two different gestures. Somebody said, well, he's autistic. I'm going to say what Ambien told Roseanne when she said she was Ambien tweeting, and that's why she was racist. I'm going to say the same thing that they said to Roseanne. Just like racism is not a side effect of Ambien, saluting Hitler or doing the Hitler salute is not a side effect of autism. That's a side effect of you being a shithead. There are videos and pictures of Tim Walz doing a sieg heil. No, there aren't. There are no images or anything of AOC doing this or any of that. It's made up. We're going to touch on some of those things, but let me just show you one example. This is an account named End Wokeness. I believe it's Jack Posobiec, but nobody really knows who it is for sure. End Wokeness posted this image of Taylor Swift sticking her hand out. It's fake. This is a fake image. This didn't happen. She waved to a crowd with her left hand. They edited her left hand to be down by her side and made it her right hand that she was sticking up like a Hitler salute. because it's the right hand that you would do it with. It's an edited fake image. Elon Musk retweets it. Somebody says, "My God, not her too." This is the actual video. She sticks her hand out. She kisses her left hand. Notice her left hand, blows a kiss and waves with her left hand. And it was modified. So no, there isn't a video of Taylor Swift doing it. There isn't a video of Tim Walz doing it or any of that other stuff. But even if there were video of them looking like they're doing the exact same salute as Elon, even if there were video of that, AOC, Tim Walz, Taylor Swift, they don't have any positive views about Nazis. Elon Musk does have positive views about Nazis. Yeah, Elon Musk said, apparently I'm a Zionist and a Nazi. How is that possible? Let's just talk about it. If you're unfamiliar, a Zionist is a person that believes that Jews should go to Israel and control it as their own state, an ethno-religious state controlled for Jews, by Jews, and nobody else. And the more extreme you get in this mindset, the more racist you become. Like, no Arabs, no Chinese, nobody that isn't ethnically Jewish. Okay, there are two types of Republicans out there today when it comes to like Israel. There's the Zionist kind, like Mike Huckabee, who will do anything for Israel, like even give them nuclear weapons if that's what it took, just because they believe that part of the deal is Israel has to exist and a great war is going to start in Israel. And then the end comes. Like he has to appear on the steps of the Temple Mount, basically, before the end comes. But the temple doesn't exist. There's a mosque over top of it. Al-Aqsa Mosque is on the Temple Mount. And tearing down the Al-Aqsa Mosque would mean a war the likes of which we have never seen. Christian world, Jewish world versus the Muslim world. It would be really devastating and ugly. So that's the kind of the Christian Zionist viewpoint. And then the other type of right-winger are people like Stu Peters and his friend John Miller, who he's talking to here.
They have to say these outlandish things to make up for the fact that if it weren't for this sort of ridiculous, cartoonish death narrative that we've been sold, a lot of people would be looking at the 1930s through 1940s saying, not only does this make a lot of sense, not only does this kind of all add up and history play itself out in the way that we'd expect it to, but there's a lot of similarities to today. And you can't afford to have people start to make those connections. So they come in with this just outlandish narrative,
talking about the Holocaust, outlandish narrative,
where it's if you put it in a movie, people would say, I didn't like that movie because I just thought it was a little too cartoonish. I didn't think it was realistic. And that's the narrative we've been sold. And to make Hitler out to be this obscene monster, that's the only way they can essentially remedy this story so that you can say it's clear who the bad guys were and it's clear who the good guys were. Because when you take that part out of the narrative, then it's not really as clear who the evil ones are.
That's right.
So you have to make them evil in order to sell people this story. And now, just as popular culture wise, very clear who the evil one is. Obviously, the evil one is Hitler, and very clear who the good guys are. It's clearly, the Jewish people and the Allies who came in to defeat Hitler. But is that really what the story is?
Mm-hmm. Don't you dare question it. But the writing is on the wall.
What an absolutely psychotic mindset to be in. Notice he did some like denial, like this isn't completely accurate or whatever, but primarily his argument is that this isn't all bad. He did the right thing. He was doing the right thing. It wasn't saying that, well, if he did do the things that you said, no, he endorses those ideas, Nazi ideas. So there are two types of people on the right, the Christian right. There are Zionists and there are people like this. The thing is, the Zionists are also like this by and large. As Elon said, apparently I'm a Zionist and a Nazi. How's that possible? What is a Zionist? There's a guy named Victor Klemperer in the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. He was what one might call a privileged Jew in Germany. He fought in World War I and he had medals, and as such was one of the very few exemptions from most of, from executions basically in Germany. So he lives in Germany with his wife, who was Aryan, quote unquote, and he stuck it out to the very end, writing a diary the whole time. He wrote about how he owned a shop with like a house, and the government took his shop and house and gave them to an Aryan couple or whatever, and stuck him into a little one-room place with 40 other people. They were literally sleeping on top of each other. It was so cramped. One bathroom. Eventually, they took his typewriter, so he had to handwrite all of his diary entries and everything. He stuck it out to the end. And in his diary entries, he wrote about Zionism. He wrote about, like, what these people wanted and who they were. And I just want to, like, read an excerpt from that. You know why he wrote about them? Because the Zionists made a deal with Hitler, a treaty, effectively. So Victor Klemperer, in this book, this is Richard J. Evans' book, The Third Reich in Power, and it's on page 567. It says, one such woman was Ava, wife of Victor Klemperer, who stood by him through all the vicissitudes, I've never heard that word before, of the 1930s. As a war veteran and the husband of an Aryan, he was still entitled to keep his job as a professor of French literature at Dresden's Technical University, but he was removed from examining. He was unable to find a publisher for his latest book, and his teaching was so severely restricted that attendance at his lectures fell to single figures, and he felt in danger of being made redundant. He was dismayed still further by some of his Jewish friends' continuing illusions about the regime, quote unquote. All around him, Jewish colleagues were being dismissed, and young Jewish families he knew were emigrating to Palestine. At this point in time, they hadn't closed the doors yet. There's a moment in time when Germany, they were trying to push Jews out, get them out of Europe, and then they closed the doors and said, we don't want them to leave anymore, and opened, the camps to do psychotic stuff. So this is like in the lead up to all of that psychotic stuff happening. Again, he survived because he was like in a privileged position being a war veteran. Anyway, it says Jewish colleagues were being dismissed, and young Jewish families he knew were emigrating to Palestine. As a German nationalist, he was shocked. One quick note here. German nationalists were completely out of their heads on being German. They were basically like Nazis, minus some of the ideology. And nearly everybody was like a nationalist in Germany at the time. Anyway, Victor Klemperer was a German nationalist. He believed Germany uniquely had a right to rule Europe and nobody else. Ideally, the world. Anyway, the book says, as a German nationalist, he was shocked by the extent to which other Jewish friends were taking on a more Jewish identity and losing their Germanness. He considered Zionism little better than Nazism. He saw his Jewish friends emigrating to Palestine, but had no thought of going there himself. Anyone who goes there is exchanging nationalism and narrowness for nationalism and narrowness, quote unquote. That's from Victor Klemperer, what he wrote in his book in the 30s. In his diary, I mean. Anyone who goes there is exchanging nationalism and narrowness for nationalism and narrowness. And in any case, he felt he could not adapt to another life at his age. He wrote, a useless creation of excessive culture. Anyway, the point is that Jews in Germany at the time viewed Zionists as far-right extremist nationalists that were just as extreme and psychotic as the Nazis in a different direction. And they were correct. There were groups at the time, Zionist groups, that were they're Jewish cults, like full-blown extremist, violent Jewish cults out of their heads, drunk on nationalism. And they were the ones who made a deal with Hitler. Let me read one more section. This is 10 pages later, I believe. This is on page 557. No, I'm sorry, 10 pages earlier than Victor Klemperer's account. It says, as Europeans, most of them preferred to stay in another country on the same continent. 73% of 1933's Jewish immigrants remained within Europe, while only 8% traveled overseas to destinations such as the United States. In 1933, despite the relative weakness of Zionism in Germany, no fewer than 19% settled in Palestine. By the way, at the time it was Palestine. There was no, Israel. But they went to Palestine to live on what was called kibbutzes, I believe. They're basically little communes. They kind of live in little groups together. And by the late 40s, after World War II wrapped up and everything, I believe 1947, they made deals with outside governments, Czechoslovakia being one of them, to be supplied with guns. And they started a full-blown war and claimed territory in the name of Israel. It was called the Nakba, I believe. I'll just double-check on that. Yeah, it was, it's the mass displacement and dispossession of Palestinians during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. It's a Nakba. Ethnic cleansing, basically. The Zionists in 1948 were out of their heads, drunk on nationalism and extremism, to the degree that the Nazis were, according to Victor Klemperer. And that's who controls Israel today. People with that ideology. In fact, Christians are in favor of Zionism, as aforementioned, because they want Jesus to appear. So, for example, Joe Biden has said that he's a Zionist multiple times. I think that Biden is a lot more reasonable than some of the absolutely out of their head psychotic people that are in favor of Zionism. But, that's still bad. That's still absolutely terrible. Zionism is horrific and ugly and a death cult. Anyway, let's keep reading. Altogether, 52,000 German Jews went there between 1933 and 1939 to Palestine. A significant reason for this surprisingly high number lay in the fact that representatives of the Zionist movement in Germany and Palestine had signed a pact with the Nazi government on August 17th, 1933. August 17th, 1933. There was a big Jewish boycott on April 1st, 1933. It was called, I think it was just called the April boycott. Anyway, there was a boycott on April 1st, 1933, that very clearly outlined what the next 12 years or so were going to be about, or 14 years. It was an anti-Jewish boycott where their storefronts were vandalized. They were, there's rioting, there was looting. They had Jews spray painted across their storefronts and everything. And it got so ugly that in an age without social media, reports got out outside of Germany about how ugly and horrific this massive riot against the Jews on April 1st. There were newspaper reports with pictures of dead people from, the riots and everything. And Hitler said it's just atrocity propaganda. So the real ugly stuff started in April 1933. I mean, it had been ramping up before that, but that was a clear moment of holy shit, this is what's happening. Everybody knew. 6 months later, or 4 months later, Zionists made a deal with Hitler. They knew what he was about. They knew he wanted them dead. They made a deal with them. Despite that, you know why they got along enough to make deals with each other? Because they were both nationalist nutcase ideologies, completely out of their heads, both of them, both Zionists and Nazis. Anyway, keep listening here. So the Zionists made a pact with the Nazi government August 17th, 1933, known as the Havara Transfer Agreement. It was personally endorsed by Hitler and committed the German Ministry of Economics to allowing Jews who left for Palestine to transfer a significant portion of their assets there, about 140 million Reichsmarks all told, while those who left for other countries had to leave much of what they owned behind. So the Zionists made a deal with Hitler that got people to go to Palestine instead of other countries. Outside of this book, there's another book, And the Witnesses Were Silent, that talks about how Hitler funded out of his own personal money mission trips, Christian mission trips to Palestine to set up shop there and basically prod the locals into hating Jews as much as he did, to talk about like how Jews are ruining everything and all that other junk. Again, And the Witnesses Were Silent, Wolfgang Gerlach, if you're curious about the source. Anyway, this says, the reasons for the Nazis' favored treatment of immigrants to Palestine were complex. On one hand, they regarded the Zionist movement as a significant part of the world Jewish conspiracy they dedicated their lives to destroying. On the other, helping Jewish emigration to Palestine might mitigate international criticism of anti-Semitic measures at home. Moreover, and crucially, the principal aim of the Nazis in these years was to drive the Jews out of Germany and preferably out of Europe too. For all the murderous violence they meted out to them, they did not at this stage intend, still less plan, to exterminate all of Germany's Jews. A Germany free of Jews would, in Nazi eyes, be a stronger Germany, fit to take on the rest of Europe and then the world. Only when that happened would the Nazis turn to solving what they thought of as the Jewish problem on a world scale. The Zionists were prepared to do a deal with the Nazis if the result was a strengthening of the Jewish presence in Palestine. German Jews would bring much-needed skills and experience with them. They would also, many leading Zionists thought, bring money and capital for investment. Quick side note here, another reason that Hitler wanted, or another reason Hitler was okay with them going to Palestine rather than other countries is because they were out of Europe. Technically, now they're in, like, Asia. I believe that's... I'm not sure if that's part of, like... I don't know. Like, the continents are not split up logically, but I think that's part of Asia. Like, India is part of Asia. I believe the Middle East is also part of Asia, technically, the Asian continent. Hitler would have had to have traveled through, like, 16 different countries to reach Palestine, or he would have had to have an aircraft carrier, and he didn't have that at the time, to cross through the sea to reach Palestine. So they were, by and large, safe from Hitler in Palestine for the most part. I think he just wanted to take over Europe. That was his aspiration for that moment. Eventually, he was going to move into, Russia, obviously, and his ultimate aspirational goals were to split a lot of that area with Japan and so on and so forth. But that was the plan. That's why he was pushing them into Palestine, because he wanted to take Europe. And he just wanted to ethnically cleanse it first rather than genocide. In return, the Havara Transfer Agreement, which formalized these arrangements, provided for the export of much-needed goods, such as citrus fruit from Palestine to Germany, as part of the exchange. On both sides, therefore, this was above all a marriage of convenience, but it was increasingly disputed within the Nazi regime itself. This is not least the consequence of the establishment of the Jewish Affairs Division of the SS Security Service in 1935. One of the principal sections of the organization, it was led by an increasingly radical group of young officers, including Dieter... Wait, I gotta get this right. I can't read it exactly. I think it's Dieter Wisklency, Theodor Daniker, and Adolf Eichmann. These men became progressively more anxious that encouraging Jews to go to Palestine would accelerate the formation of a Jewish state there, with dangerous consequences for Germany in the long run, or so they thought. Anyway, the point is that to kind of circle back around, respond to Elon Musk, what he said, apparently I'm a Zionist and a Nazi. Yes, they go hand in hand. They're similar ideologies, which is why you see things like the ADL defending a Nazi salute. The Anti-Defamation League. This is a delicate moment. It's a new day, yet so many are on edge. Our politics are inflamed. Social media only adds to the anxiety. It seems that Elon Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm. Not a Nazi salute, but again, we appreciate that people are on edge. It was a Nazi salute. That's clear as day. Couldn't possibly be clearer. The ADL is a Zionist organization. It goes hand in hand with Nazism. They are two sides of the same coin. There are mirror ideologies. Nazis are obsessed with the Aryan race. Jews are obsessed with the Jewish race in the exact same way. It's also why you get things like Netanyahu defending Elon Musk in this. Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, claims Musk falsely smeared over claims he made Nazi salute. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has backed Elon Musk over accusations he made. Over the accusation. Okay, this isn't originally in English, I don't think. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has backed Elon Musk over accusation he made a Nazi salute, claiming he, the billionaire ex-owner, is being falsely smeared. In a post on the vocal supporter and ally of U.S. President Donald Trump's social media platform, Netanyahu claimed Musk as a great friend of Israel. He added, Elon Musk is being falsely smeared. Elon is a great friend of Israel. He visited Israel over the October 7th massacre, in which Hamas terrorists committed the worst atrocity against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Nazism and Zionism go hand in hand. When you recognize that, when you understand that they are basically the exact same ideology, but toward different ends, it doesn't surprise you anymore to find that the ADL and Netanyahu defended that. They're doing exactly what the Jews for Germans, or the Jews for Hitler group did. I forget the name of it now. Jews for Hitler. 1935, it was disbanded. They existed for 2 years while deportations occurred, while labor camps are set up where they're forcing people into slave labor. They continue to support them. Same thing. Whatever furthers their goal of a new ethno-state. Like I said before, like if AOC or Tim Walz or Kamala Harris or whoever else, if they supported Nazi ideals and they stuck their hand up like that, waving or whatever, it'd cross my mind. I start wondering. But they don't at all. Elon Musk, on the other hand, does support Nazi ideals. Amid Nazi salute scandal, Elon Musk joins German far-right AfD event via video. I don't actually know this website, but I know that this happened because I've seen it written in other places, so let's just talk about it. Elon Musk has caused waves once again, this time with his surprise video address to a rally of Germany's far-right Alternative for Deutschland, which is AfD, party on January 25th. They're the new Nazi party, effectively. Being a Nazi is illegal in Germany, so they come up as close as they can to the line, and some even cross it and are currently under investigation by the German government right now, like a lot of the leadership is, for their ties to like the Nazi ideology. They're the new Nazi party. The AfD even releases ads where people are sticking their right hands up in a sieg heil fashion, in a veiled way, touching each other's hands to form out a home. It's pretty clear what they're doing. It's the new Nazi party, and Elon Musk endorsed them. This marks his second public appearance in support of the controversial party within a fortnight, prompting further debate on his growing influence in European politics. Who uses fortnights as a measurement? Really? Okay, whatever. Musk's message was clear. He believes the AfD represents the best hope for Germany's future. It gets worse, if you can believe it. It gets worse. Listen to this next paragraph. It makes it pretty clear what's happening. A call to preserve German identity. Speaking to a crowd of 4,500 AfD supporters in Halle, Eastern Germany, Musk emphasized the importance of preserving German culture and values. Literally, the thing that Hitler said he was trying to do. Preserve German culture and values. Make Germany great again. That's what they said. Make Germany great again. Really. The reason I know so much about it is because I wrote a book about it. Was Hitler an atheist, if you're curious? I had a book, but I don't have it over here right now. Anyway, check it out. Amazon and Audible, if you're interested. It's good to be proud of German culture, says Elon Musk, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything. Use of the word dilute here is too on the nose. Hitler was obsessed with the idea that Jews were diluting the Aryan race. Aryan is fake. I'm sure I don't need to say that, but I'm going to say it just in case. Again, I wrote this whole thing about it. It's in chapter 1 of my book. Aryanism was this belief that that white people are this super race. They are supermen, literally Ubermensch is what they called them. They were stronger, smarter, more cunning, more powerful, more everything, more attractive. And the reason that we don't see them as supermen who can lift 1,000 pounds, who can, do all this other crazy stuff, and IQs of 200. The reason that we don't see that anymore is because the Jews intentionally came into Germany with the goal of diluting the bloodline, poisoning the blood, quote unquote. That's what Hitler said. And they believed that there was an eternal struggle between the Semite and the Aryan. And it's all nonsense. It's all pseudo-scientific, pseudo-historical trash. But this is what Hitler talked about. And Elon is using exact words, the exact words that Hitler used. Multiculturalism dilutes everything. I mean, Trump famously said that immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. That is word for word from Hitler. Poisoning the blood. That's what he said. Musk's words were well received by the crowd, but they stirred unease among critics who viewed his remarks as aligning with far-right ideologies. It's more than far-right ideologies. It's Hitler's ideology, directly. His speech highlighted the need for more self-determination for Germany and expressed a desire for less influence from European Union authorities, referring to Brussels in a critical light. Musk further reinforced his endorsement of the party by stating, "I'm very excited for the AfD. I think you're really the best hope for Germany. Fight for a great future for Germany." He also apparently tried to get people to forget about the past, forget about the guilt that they would have over what happened in the Holocaust. He says children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, let alone their grandparents, suggesting the country was overly focused on its historical guilt. I agree that they shouldn't feel guilty for what their grandparents did, but they shouldn't forget what their grandparents did. They should repeat it every generation. They should teach it in schools, and they do in Germany. They do. They teach this. They teach what happened. The people alive today were not responsible for what happened, but they do have a responsibility to make sure everybody knows where it went wrong and how to prevent it again in the future. Elon Musk is trying to short circuit that, knowing what was wrong with it and preventing it in the future. He's trying to short circuit it when he says they should not be guilty of the sins of their parents. It's something that everybody agrees with. Nobody is arguing that. Nobody feels that way. We're just teaching the history to prevent it from happening again. The point is that Elon Musk is a Nazi. It would be weird if he wasn't a Nazi at all and he espoused left-leaning positions rather than Nazi positions and did that hand gesture. But he is a Nazi, clearly. I mean, we don't have to wonder. He's just telling us. He's telling us about his political ideals and all that stuff, telling the AfD about it. He very obviously is a Nazi. He's not hiding it either, really. I don't know why anybody has any problem believing this. I mean, that's not the only thing. I don't want to go through the whole list of stuff that Elon Musk has done that shows that he's a Nazi. There's plenty. Posting a bunch of stuff about Nazi conspiracy theories. He's just repeating Nazi conspiracy theories, white genocide stuff, Aryan genocide stuff. It's all of the same stuff that was repeated in the 40s and the 50s and in the 30s and the 40s and is repeated today by neo-Nazis. It's all the same stuff. Now, I got to tell you, I think we're watching an example of something called the fire hose of falsehoods. It's a propaganda technique that was maybe invented by Putin, probably not invented by him, but it was kind of coined by him, or it was named after what he was doing in 2014 in Ukraine. He invaded Ukraine, parts of Ukraine, in 2014 while Obama was president. Crimea, I think he took. I remember it at the time. And he used the fire hose of falsehoods propaganda technique. Here's how it works. You repeat as many lies as you possibly can through as many outlets as possible and see which ones stick. For example, with the recent Ukraine stuff, Putin spread that they were looking for labs in Ukraine where Americans were working with Ukrainians to produce bioweapons to use against Russia. He claimed that they were trying to fight Nazis, and he claimed that they were trying to save child trafficking victims. Those are just 3 super basic examples. And he repeats all of these nonsensical claims as much as he possibly can through every network, at RT, every TV channel, every website that will reprint it or talk about it or whatever. Create the controversy, make people talk about it as much as possible so that everybody hears it. As Hitler said, distill these things into single sentence slogans that everybody hears. Not everybody will hear the entire propaganda line, but everybody will get the sentiment. That's the goal of it. They want everybody to get the idea that's behind it. Even the stupidest person in Germany, for example, should be able to get it. It's that simple, and it's repeated that much. The fire hose of falsehoods. In my opinion, that's what we're watching unfold with Elon Musk and the Nazi salute. They're repeating as many lies as possible through as many outlets as they can, boosting Twitter accounts that say things like, it wasn't a Nazi salute, it was the Roman salute. He was doing the Roman salute, which, by the way, is the Nazi salute. I don't see how that, absolves him or whatever, gives him an out. I don't see how that, that solves anything for him. And then there's the classic, he was showing us, giving his heart to the crowd. He's given us a heart symbol to the crowd, He wasn't given a Nazi salute, he was given a heart to the crowd. Repeating as many lies as humanly possible through as many outlets as he can. Fire hose of falsehoods. I believe that that's what's happening right now. Anyway, I hope that I have dispelled any notion that he was not giving a Nazi salute. It's very clear that he was. I hope that we can now see why it's destructive, at the very least, if for no other reason than because it's a destructive ideology and it's spreading to other people, like Laura Smith, for example. This was intentional by Elon Musk, and we cannot accept it. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't wish death on anybody. But Nazis, full-blown Nazis, are testing that idealistic position. It's pushing it to its limit. When you're dealing with people who literally are trying to imprison others, use them as slave labor, or even kill others, depending on how extreme the Nazi or Zionist ideology are. When you're dealing with people like that, it's testing it, it's pushing it to its limits. So one more time to wrap up, Zionism is effectively the same as Nazism. One focuses on the Aryan man and making him out to be this big, incredible thing and trying to stop anybody else from diluting the blood. And the other focuses on the Jewish man. Two sides of the same coin. Tell me what you think in the comments.